misdemeanor site.
10-4-12. Welcome to Law and Order BUX. I'm your host, Bucks County Sheriff Fred Harran. Every corner of Bucks County has a story to tell. Sometimes a story of resilience. Sometimes a story that chills us to the bone. Sometimes a story of government not being able to get out of its own way. Here, the forces of law and order are constantly at work, often behind the scenes. Join us as we delve into the gripping realities of crime and justice in our community. We'll explore the hidden worlds, the difficult decisions, and the unwavering commitment it takes to maintain law and order right here in Bucks County. Hello, welcome to Law and Order BUX, BUX, episode 17, and I'm your host, Sheriff Fred Harran. We've got another very interesting episode today, and we're talking in September. This is our first episode in the month of September, and September is Recovery Month across America. And, people suffering from, substance abuse disorder, it's a disease, and it's horrible. Knowing personally, going through it in my family, I know the pain and suffering, the destruction, the devastation, the chaos, any adjective you can think of to describe what a family goes through. And no one is immune from this here in Bucks County. It doesn't matter if you're living in low-income housing, if you're living in houses that are $2-3 million in Bucks County. No one is immune from this disease. And I use the word disease because no matter what you think, and listen, I've been in law enforcement now for 39 years. So you would think, well, I have this hardened attitude, and that's just not the case. Maybe because of my personal involvement with this horrible disease. But it could affect anybody, and we have to think of it as an illness. No one wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to be addicted to drugs. Today I'm going to lose my job, my family, every penny I have in my savings account, everybody who loves me, I'm going to alienate them and get them out of my life. No one wants that. No one wakes up to that. No one seeks that. No one dreams of that. They dream what we dream, to be happy, to be well off, to be healthy, to have a loving family, to do neat and fun things. That's what people want, but it doesn't always turn out that way. But it can. We could turn it around. Let's talk about substance abuse disorder. Let's talk about some statistics. Let's talk about the things we're doing in Bucks County. Some of the things that we started. Bucks County became, like we are with many things, a county of firsts. And we're talking about 3 or 4 different programs that we're doing here in Bucks County to help combat that. And there's so many. I always tell people, it's kind of weird, but if you're going to have this problem, sometimes Bucks County is the place to be because there are so many resources here. I will say, people like the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission, which I happen to be on the board, so I am a little, I guess slighted that they're a great organization. But you've got people like Diane Rosati in Bucks County. You've got people like Rachel Neff and our own commissioners, all three. I know I fight with the commissioners sometimes, but I got to give credit where credit's due. All 3 work hard for this issue, and Bucks County is a great county with a lot of resources. But we do have some staggering numbers. 49 million Americans have a substance use disorder. 49 million Americans. In 2023, 107,000 people died from overdoses in America, largely driven by fentanyl. And I will say, a lot of this stuff is coming in over our borders. I don't want to get off on that topic because I know it's very sensitive, especially with some of the projects I have going on. But the fact is, a lot of this stuff is coming across our borders. And when you lock our borders down, the drugs have a harder time getting in. A little trivia, because we're coming up to it. We're in September now. Next week, next Thursday, is an infamous day, like Pearl Harbor. You know, 9/11, 2001, I remember that. Do you know the 3 days after 9/11, the prices of drugs skyrocketed in the United States? Do you know why? Because the drugs that were here were all the drugs that were going to be here until we didn't know when. The borders were shut down. There was nothing moving. There was no flights. There was no ships. There was no rail. There was nobody coming into the country. Things were double checked, triple checked. And it was the drugs that were on the shelf is all that was here. And I use that term loosely. And the prices skyrocketed, and there were no more drugs coming to the United States for those couple of days. But then things change. We get back to normal, and our borders start to open, and drugs start to flow again. So we can control the drugs that way. 9 out of 10 adults with a substance use disorder started using before the age of 18. I'm going to just go through some stats, and then we're going to talk about what we're doing. Employees with untreated substance use disorder miss more than 3 weeks of work annually. That's almost 15 days a year because of their illness. 8.7 million children in the United States live with one parent who has a substance use disorder. Right here in Bucks County, 200 of our neighbors lost their lives to overdoses for opioids last year. And now the opioids now, 90%. 90%. That's 9 out of 10. 90% of the fentanyl is laced with xylazine, Trank. Let's talk about Trank. Trank is a new drug on the market, not so new now, been out for a couple of years. But the problems with Trank are long lasting. With opioids, and I'm not minimizing this, but with opioids, your respiration, your breathing stops. And if your breathing stops, a few minutes later, your heart will start. You'll go into cardiac arrest. But it can be reversed. We'll talk about Narcan, but it can be reversed with Narcan, and you start breathing again. And then you can actually go about your day. Not recommended. You should seek medical help and treatment right away because the fentanyl processes could get reattached and stop your breathing again. So you want to make sure you get treatment. But with xylazine starts destroying your organs. So the process and the destruction is so much longer lasting, and you don't even realize it. Besides from the open wounds, because skin is an organ, the skin doesn't rejuvenate, and you start to get seeping wounds, which leads to infections, which leads to amputations of your limbs. But if it doesn't attack that, it goes after other organs that start to shut down. And when we arrest people and they're suffering from different drug symptoms, and xylazine is one of them, they start to have longer stays in hospitals. Who do you think pays for that? That comes to a cost for the Bucks County taxpayer. So let's get the problem knocked off in the beginning. Let's get them treated. Let's get them the help they need. Because a lot of people don't believe that we should be putting in money into treatment. They're absolutely wrong. We should be putting money into treatment. Education is one thing, but treatment isn't necessary. People just can't quit and get off of this stuff. It's just so powerful. They can't get off on their own. We need to support recovery. We need to support it. The other emerging drug that we're seeing I shouldn't say emerging, xylazine is emerging, but making a comeback is methamphetamine. Methamphetamine, opposite of fentanyl, opposite of opioids, is a stimulant. And we're seeing that, and that brings a whole host of problems with it as well. But our officers here in Bucks County, I'm going to say almost every officer in Bucks County, including the Sheriff's Department, including the Park Police, including many other law enforcement officials, plus our 900 sworn police officers in the county, are all equipped with Narcan. Narcan. And since 2015, the number is somewhere like 1,500 Narcan reversals, saves. That's 1,500 people that were saved. Now, what happened later in life, I don't know. But hopefully, if you're at death's doors like that and you get saved, hopefully that could be rock bottom and it's time to go through rehabilitation. That's not always the case. And we'll talk about that a little later. But the numbers are just absolutely staggering. And, some people will tell you that the overdose deaths are down. That is true. But they're down because of Narcan, the amount of Narcan. First, you had to get a prescription for Narcan. First, it was just law enforcement. Now everybody's got Narcan. people that are carrying it in their purse. So a lot of you keeping it in your cars, you're keeping it in the workplace. You've got Narcan stations, you've got Narcan, everybody's kind of carrying it. So there are a lot of reversals. So, but I don't believe the drug addiction is going down. And we need to keep that fight. And as a law enforcement officer, I believe it's a three-pronged approach. Education, which is probably the cheapest and the easiest to do. Rehabilitation and law enforcement. Prevention that way by stopping the drugs from coming in. And I think that's something we really have to, we don't put enough money towards that locally. We don't put enough money towards that locally. And now with the possibility of the legalization of marijuana, and I'm not going to get into a whole spiel on that, I'm just going to tell you that no one wakes up in the morning and starts off with a needle in their arm or starts off using, opioid or fentanyl or Percocets or Vicodin or any of those other drugs. Most drugs start off as a gateway drug. And not to bring back my old Dare days, but we know that alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana are gateway drugs. And specifically marijuana, people start with that. I'm going to tell you about a case in Bensalem when I was there that we started a case. It started with an arrest of an individual at Route 1 and Old Lincoln Highway for possession of a marijuana cigarette. That case led to a multi-state opioid ring. What? I don't get that. One case with a marijuana cigarette led to a multiple state opioid ring because that case led us to somebody else, that led us to somebody else, that led us to this big ring. If we didn't have the original arrest for marijuana, it would have never led us to the other people. So we got to keep that in mind, our elected officials out there, when you're talking about legalization of marijuana. Also, one more comment on that. If in fact the government believed that the medical marijuana and legalization of marijuana was so good for you and just is not a big deal, then I'm going to make this challenge to our elected officials. Don't tax it. If you think medical marijuana is a good medicine for people that are suffering from different ailments, which in some cases it might be, I'm not talking about for the terminal cancer patient. I'm talking about the person who has a little pain in the back. That was me this morning. A little bit of pain in my back when I woke up. But you know what? You walk it out for 10 minutes, you stretch it out, you do some right things, and the pain subsides. You can make it through the day. But if you're one of those elected officials and you think that, no, we want to give our constituents an option, fine, don't tax it. Because you're not taxed on ibuprofen, and you're not taxed on Tylenol, and you're not taxed on prescription medication. So don't tax it. Let's put your money where your mouth is. Ladies and gentlemen, no elected official is going to vote for that then. So I tell you that they're not in it for the good of you. They're in it for the good of their pockets of government so they can funnel money other places. I'm probably going to get myself into trouble, but I don't really care. Well, let's move on. So, all right, Fred, you're talking about all these things. What are we doing about it? Well, we started off, we've got Narcan out there. Every officer in Bucks County pretty much has Narcan. We do the drug take back. We are number one in the Commonwealth for getting drugs off the street. That's not a bad thing. Somebody could flip that and say, oh, that's because we've got such a drug problem in Bucks County. Everybody's got a drug problem. Bucks County, wherever you are in America, there's a drug problem. There's no county, there's no city, there's no state that's immune from a drug problem. It's what you're doing about it to minimize it. So we're working hard to get drugs off the street. Our district attorney, Jen Shorn, before that, Matt Weintraub, and they are doing, well, Matt's now a judge, sorry, Your Honor, but Jen is out there and working hard to get those drugs off the street. But let's see some of the other things that we started here in Bucks County, and a lot of it started in Bensalem, I got to say. I'm real proud of my roots were there, and doing stuff in the sheriff's office, I got to expand on some of the stuff that we started in Bensalem. But we started a BPAIR program. It started off with the Bensalem Police Assisting in Recovery, and then it changed to Bucks County Police Assisting in Recovery. I believe it was like 23 departments out of 39 that have a warm handoff program. That basically, if you come into the station, not after you get arrested, that's not when it's time for your confession. But if you come to the station and you say that you need help, or you come here, and we'll talk about one of the programs right here right here in my office, right here in the sheriff's department that we started a couple of months back. Took a while to get it going, but that was for logistical issues. Nothing, no one person stopped it. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you walk into a police department, you can get help, no questions asked. And here in Bucks County, with the help of the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission, they do a fantastic job. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. If you're a Bucks County resident and you want help, we will get you assessed and get you into treatment, no questions asked. And that tool is available and alive and well today. We started that in Bensalem. We modeled it after a city in Massachusetts, Gloucester, Massachusetts. I never forget, my secretary texted me on a weekend. She said, I just saw this thing on Facebook. I don't think it's real. And it's about this program in Gloucester. If those of you don't know what Gloucester, Massachusetts is, from the movie with the boat that capsized, The Fisherman. Oh my God. What is the name of that movie? I can't remember. But it was the movie about the fisherman. The guy from, the brother of the guy from, oh my God, I can't remember. Anyway, that movie. And it started, that was in Gloucester, the fishing town. So we brought the police around, we zoomed them in, and it was a real program. And basically they started there, that anybody could walk into the police department. I said, listen, they could do it there in Gloucester. We could certainly do it here. And we started in Bensalem, and it was very, very successful. And in Bensalem, it caught on to 23 other departments. And then let's jump ahead to the year of George Floyd. I think that was 2021. And we all watched that on television. I saw an opportunity. George Floyd, obviously, we know, had some mental health issues and some drug addiction issues. I don't want to get into the debate on the whole national George Floyd issue. But the fact is, I saw that moment and I said, I think we can do something here. I think we could take this tragedy and turn it into something, at least for us in Bucks County. So I started Googling programs in the United States where police and mental health people were teamed up. And I found a place in Albuquerque, New Mexico, of all places. But it was run out of the mayor's office there. And I thought, man, that's kind of weird. So I did a little bit more. I made some calls, and we took that program in Bensalem and we twisted it into what's now well known to the co-responder program. And we went from, one or two co-responders in Bensalem. And I went to the county. I called, actually, I got to be honest, I called Commissioner Marseglia because I knew with her background, she would help make this a reality, and she did. Again, got to give credit where credit's due. I have no problem with that. Commissioner Marseglia, I told her, I don't remember what her first reaction is. I think she said she thought about that for years and things like that. I said, well, let's do it, and let's make Bensalem the pilot, because you got a chief that's going to want to do it, and he's going to make sure it's accepted. And there was some pushback. A lot of the guys and gals thought I was like off my mind. I was way outside the box, and I like being outside the box. But you know what? Now I don't think Bensalem would live without it. And now you've got, I think, 19 other departments in Bucks County, if not more. I know that number keeps rising. It doesn't decrease, it rises, with 10 co-responders. So we went from one or two in Bensalem. We had 2 co-responders we started off with, because Bensalem's a big town, to now 10 co-responders throughout Bucks County. And this is not a defund the police movement. It's an individual who's specially trained that can help somebody with mental health, with drug addiction, with substance abuse disorder, could help them and do the follow-up that these people need. And that's something we've got to remember, that these folks need somebody to help follow up. And the average patrol officer, street cop, does not have the time. They're so busy running for 911 calls from call to call to call. They don't have time to spend a half hour. But the co-responder does. The co-responder helps with family situations, with drug issues, with mental health specifically. And a lot of times you find drug and mental health coexist, because a lot of people with mental health issues will self-medicate themselves with illegal drugs. So they coexist. And this, to bury your head in the sand and say, well, they're separate issues. Sometimes they are, but many times they're not. Take it from someone who knows that people sometimes with mental health issues will utilize illegal substances to deal with their mental health. So we've got that up and running here in Bucks County. It's expanding and expanding. I know Congressman Fitzpatrick, I think he's got $1 million grant in the works. I that's moving along, from what I understand, and that will help fund the co-responders for another year. And I know a lot of departments said, listen, when the funding is gone from the county and the feds, they'll pick up, they'll try to work that price into their general fund, because it's that kind of a program. What happened next? There was one day I was in a courtroom listening to guilty pleas. I try to make it around, listen to some cases, see what's going on in the courtrooms, check on the deputies, make sure the judges are good. And I think it was Judge Bateman, if I'm not mistaken, and he's phenomenal. And he was doing guilty pleas, or he was doing bench warrants, something like that. And when he had the person kind of allocute, the person talked about their drug addiction for years, and that's what drove them a crime. I get it, because you sometimes need to commit crime to support your drug habit. That's what I mean. How does it, I don't have anybody, you're sitting there listening to this, I don't have anybody in my family that has a drug addiction. Maybe that's so. Outstanding. You're one of the few. Congratulations, Mazel Tov. That's amazing. However, when you're paying your insurance, when you're paying Allstate or Prudential, whatever else, they're not eating the money. When houses get burglarized and cars get stolen or whatever it is, they're putting that cost back on you, my friends. And people are taking the cars. They're stealing from your cars. They're stealing from your houses. They're stealing from the stores to offset their drug habit. 80% of our crime is drug related. 80. You heard me right. Not 80. So when I was listening to this and I heard this guy allocute, and he talks about when he was 15 years old, he got addicted to drugs, blah, blah, blah. And he's going on to the whole story. And I'm like, well, and the judge says, okay, well, you need to get a drug assessment, blah, blah, blah. You would have to leave the building, go to another building, or make a phone call in order to get that assessment. Folks, those that are listening, those that have it in their family, those that may be suffering from this illness, they know that a person doesn't have 3 days. They don't have 3 hours. They don't have 30 minutes. They might not even have 3 minutes. We're talking about maybe a minute or so to decide whether or not you're going to go on the good path or the bad path. And they're going to, whether or not they're going to get high again or find some way to get their drugs. So I called Diane Rosati from Drug and Alcohol. And I said, what do you think about putting an assessment center in the Criminal Justice Center in the sheriff's office? Like right outside our office, on our floor. We're on level B2 at the CJC at 100 North Main Street in Doylestown. Person doesn't have to leave the building. They don't have to go outside and decide, I'm not going down the street. I'm not going across the street. I'm going to go get high because today stinks. And she said, I love it. And she immediately got some funding. We had a room built on this floor. And now we have a full-time staff from the Drug and Alcohol Commission assessor here who goes into rooms, listen to guilty pleas. Judges are now assigning people. And that was the whole involvement of the sheriff's office. There's a implication that you really can't leave the building, that you got to go down with the deputy to the assessment center. And that little bit, that extra 30 seconds could make all the difference in the world, whether or not you're taking the high road and the low road. And I can tell you, as we're getting the word out, I just talked to our assessor. She's getting busier and busier and busier. Well, that might not be a good thing, but it's a good thing, because if not, those people might never went onto the path to get off of drugs. So I love doing these new projects. I love coming up with these ideas, working with other people. There's so many smart people we have here in Doylestown doing all this sort of stuff. And I think that's important. The longer and longer we could stay in sobriety, 30 days, 3 months, 3 years. And when you get to like 5 years, the statistics show that rate of not staying sober, of falling off the wagon, so to speak, is less than 15%. So that's, all right, gotta do the math. 85% of those after 5 years stay sober. That's amazing. Can you imagine if we can get that number lowered to 3 years or 3 months by making sure that we have the services available? Folks, it's so important to get, because even if it's not, like I said, even if it's not in your family, it affects you monetarily. It affects our community. And you know what? any day it could be in your family. And you got to remember that. I remember I had surgery some years back and I got prescribed Oxy, Perks, and Vicodin. I forget what I ended up with. I think it was the Vicodin. I had a reaction to the Oxy. I had a reaction to the Percocet. So I went up with a Vicodin. The doctor's like, Fred, you have to take this. You have to take this. You have to take it. I took it for 4 days, and then I went to 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. Did it hurt? Yeah, but I made it through the day. Made it through. Every day got a little better. Why did I fight the doctor on taking the medication? I've never been there before. I don't know at what point could I have become addicted. Do you know your inner self? I mean, your inner self. At what point, at what pill puts you over the edge? And we've heard the stories. I was in a car accident. I fell down the stairs. I tripped off the sidewalk. I broke this. I hurt my back. Blah, 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 blah. And I got a injury and the doctor prescribed this for me. I'm not saying it's the doctor's fault. That's not what I'm saying. And next thing you know, you're addicted because you got no pain. I've had procedures done medically. They put an IV in my arm with fentanyl. There ain't no problems when you feel that fentanyl drip kick in. Everything's gone. But what happens when you got to really run life? You're just magnifying. You're just increasing your problems if you stay on fentanyl forever. Well, it's the same thing with the pills. I was scared to death because I don't know at what point could I have been addicted. And the doctor said, Fred, you are so cognizant of this fact, you're not going to get addicted because you're scared to death. That's fine. I appreciate the words of wisdom and the confidence you have in me, doctor, but I don't know and I don't have that confidence. So after 4 days, I took the ibuprofen and here I am. Fine. No problems, no pain. Well, my back hurts, but that's okay. So we've got to be cognizant of these. We've got 22 million Americans in recovery right now, folks. 22 million Americans in recovery. This could be beat, but it needs to have our support. We need to take the stigma away. If you know someone that needs help, reach out to them. Bring them to your local police department. They'll get you help. Call us here at the Sheriff's Office. Go on to the BUX County Drug and Alcohol Commission website. There's a million different ways you can get help in this county. We've got projects going all the time. We want to make sure that you get help. We're doing everything we can in law enforcement. We have a very aggressive narcotics strike force here in BUX County, thanks to our district attorney's office that works with the 39 police departments, trying to get those drugs off the street. But we are neighbors to the opioid capital of the country, Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I love the city, love the history. But there's an opioid issue here in this region, and we've got to be mindful of that. We've got to work hard to stop it. And we can. Folks, as we wind down today, because I don't want to just go on, I think, the 20, 25 minutes that we've been talking today, I think I've given you so much information on the problem. I've talked about how we can get our neighbors help and what we're doing here in BUX County to combat this issue. And we're going to keep combating it. We've got to secure our county borders, if you will, and we've got to keep putting money into law enforcement to stop that flow of drugs into our county. And we've got to make sure we have the readily accessible treatment for people that want it right now. And a lot of people want it. And if you're on that edge, don't take your next hit. Don't swallow that next pill. Don't take that next needle. Reach out to someone. If not, reach out to me at the BUX County Sheriff's Office. I promise you, you get a hold of me, I will get you help immediately. I will stop what I'm doing, and we will get you help immediately. Remember, folks, I leave you with this. People that are addicted to drugs, people suffering from substance abuse disorder, they're not bad people trying to become good people. They're sick people trying to become well. Remember that. Until next time, good luck to everybody. Help your neighbor. We're here to help. And God bless you, of course. And of course, God bless this great country of ours. Until next time, episode 17 signing off. Your Sheriff Fred Harran, Law and Order, BUX. Thank you for joining us as we explore another aspect of law enforcement in BUX County. To stay up to date on future episodes and gain further insight into the work we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about the Bucks County Sheriff's Office and the services we provide, please visit our website and be sure to download the official Bucks County Sheriff's Office app, available on Google Play and in the App Store. Join us next time for another in-depth look at law and order right here in Bucks County.